Shaping the way we teach English webinar course. Shaping the way we teach English webinar Wednesday.
Welcome to the Shaping the Way We Teach English webinar course 16, brought to you by the American English team. My name is Curtis Chan, part of the American English team based in Washington, D.C. Welcome to our large international community of English teachers from all around the world. This webinar course is all about the English Teaching Forum. Forum is a quarterly journal written by teachers for teachers. It's been around for 53 years. This year, Forum has a new look and a lot of new content. And today, we are going to learn all about the new Forum. Here you can see the Course 16 schedule. After today, we have one more webinar in Course 16 that will take place on July 1st. Just a reminder, during these webinars, you will hear but not see the presenters. The way for you to participate is by using the chat box. This is where you can ask questions or make comments related to today's topic. You will see myself, Moderator Curtis, and also Moderator Heather, Moderator Tony, and Moderator Katie in the chat box. But we also rely on the webinar community to help each other. Your presenter may also ask you questions in the form of polls. These multiple choice questions will appear on the screen for you to answer. Some people may experience technical problems. Unfortunately, we cannot fix individual technical issues, but we will let you know if we are having a global issue. If you do lose sound, a great way to follow along is with the caption pod. Webinar courses consist of 6 webinars. During the course, webinars take place every other Wednesday. Participants who attend at least 4 out of 6 webinars receive an e-certificate from the Regional English Language Officer or local U.S. Embassy. To ensure you are eligible for the e-certificate, we will ask you to submit your attendance at the very end of the webinar. Please do not submit it before we request it, or it won't be counted. Many of you are familiar with our Ning site, but if you haven't registered yet, please do join this site. Here you can find resources and discussion questions related to each webinar. This is also where you can ask presenters questions after the webinar. We are excited to announce that our next webinar series will begin September 9th. There will be a few changes for the next webinar series. First, we have a new name. We will be called the American English Webinar Series. The length of the webinars will be 60 minutes rather than 90. And if you need to get in touch with us, you can email us at americanenglishwebinars@elprograms.org. We'll continue to have great content that we hope will only be even better. You can still register through your Regional English Language Officer or local U.S. Embassy, and we will continue to share our webinar Wednesdays with you, our great community of teachers. Today's webinar, Introducing the New English Teaching Forum. English Teaching Forum has a new look. This free online and printed journal is an international forum for English teachers around the world, written by teachers around the world. It now has several new sections that provide hands-on ideas for the classroom, as well as country profiles and professional development recommendations. Our presenters today will demonstrate how Forum can foster professional development for you, your colleagues, and your English teaching community. Today's presenters are Max Kohler, Roger Cohen, David Fay, and Tom Glass. Max is the editor of English Teaching Forum and was an EFL instructor in France, Mauritania, and Burundi. Roger is a new regional English language officer and was an English language fellow and Peace Corps volunteer in Mongolia. David is a DC-based regional English language officer and since 2003 has seen forum issues being gobbled up in Uzbekistan, Russia, Peru, and more. And Tom was a former Peace Corps volunteer in Thailand. He is the assistant editor of Forum and a contributor to classroom activities and the lighter side puzzles.
Hello everyone, this is Max.
Hi, this is Roger. How are you today? Oh, hi, this is Tom Glass. And hi, this is David Fay. Welcome.
Welcome to the webinar, everyone. Before we get started, let's take a look at your responses to the warm-up puzzle. You were all working on that before we started. And now let's just quickly take a look at the results. And generally, you all did very well. Just look at the responses that have the longest blue bar, and those are the correct answers. Does anyone know where this puzzle came from? I would like you to write it in the chat box if you know where this puzzle came from. Anyone? Anyone have an idea?
Looks like some people are typing there.
We didn't make this up on the spot. We took it from someplace. Anybody got an answer there, Roger?
Not yet. People are still typing.
Who knows where the puzzle came from? We don't want to have to tell you. Make a guess. Anyone? Anyone know? Of course, it's from English Teaching Forum. Okay, and it's the section called The Lighter Side. And we'll show you a slide of what that particular puzzle looks like. We adapted it for the lobby polls. And this is what it looked like in the first issue of English Teaching Forum of 2015. And this puzzle happens to have been written by Kevin McCoy. And I think you know him. He presented the first webinar in this particular series. He told you about his article on listening. So it's appropriate that he came up with a puzzle called You're Not Listening. So by giving you this puzzle before the webinar actually began, we just gave you a demonstration of how you can use the lighter side as a warm-up activity in your own classrooms. That is, by having students work on a puzzle before the class begins. Raise your hand if you have ever given your students copies of a lighter side puzzle. There we go. I'm seeing people.
Looks like a lot of hand raises, and it looks like a couple of people knew that the puzzle was from the lighter side, so great job.
Excellent. All right. So, Roger, do you have any idea when the lighter side became part of English Teaching Forum?
Well, actually, I do know, Max. I just found out through going through the forum archives in our office that the answer is January of 1976, if you can believe it.
I can believe it, because forum has been around for even longer than that. It has changed in various ways over the years, and sometimes it changed in content, sometimes it changed in design, and since last year it has changed in both content and design. And today we are going to give our webinar participants a guided tour of the new version of English Teaching Forum that was launched in 2015.
Okay, sounds good.
So let's take a look at the goals for this webinar. First, as I said, we're going to introduce the new contents of Forum. We also want to highlight professional development opportunities that Forum provides. And we'll demonstrate how to get the most out of Forum. In the webinar, we will especially try to focus on professional development. We'd like to hear your thoughts on that topic, so we're going to give you a little poll right now. And you will answer the question, what do you do for professional development? Please check all that apply. Maybe you observe a friend teach, attend a workshop, read English Teaching Forum, chat with a teacher friend over coffee or maybe tea, present a new idea at a workshop, or you might browse the internet for teaching blogs where you can find ideas for your classrooms.
So I see here, Max, that there's a pretty even divide among what people like to do. I see a lot of people like to attend workshops, but it looks like about 47% out there like to read Forum, which is great to see. And I remember from the chat box just a few minutes ago, I also saw someone say that they used to read Forum back in the 80s. So that's great to know that people were out there reading Forum even a few decades ago. And so we're going to talk a lot about in this webinar about how Forum can help your professional development, either individually or when you're working with other teachers.
That's right. Thank you for taking that poll. And now we're going to ask you to do a little quiz, because you all have different experiences with Forum. As Roger just said, someone's been reading it for decades. It might be new to others of you. And you have different knowledge about Forum. So we want to test that knowledge with a quiz. And we will ask you a series of true and false questions. And we'd like to have you answer these as polls. And the first question is, true or false? Forum started as an English teaching newsletter in the early 1960s. Let's see what you say about that. And I don't know if you're really smart or that's just a good guess, but the answer is true. It was a newsletter that was published in 1962 called the English Teaching Newsletter. And then in March of 1963, the name was changed and the first issue of English Teaching Forum was published. If any of you saw the webinar that we did in 2012 for Forum's 50th anniversary, you saw the cover of that first issue of Forum from 1963. Let's try another question. True or false? Forum is published annually.
Wow, so that it looks like most people got it. Yes, it's actually false because Forum is a quarterly journal, so it's published 4 times a year.
And for those of you who don't see Forum regularly, it might seem like an annual publication if you're getting a copy at an annual conference or something. But if you look for Forum online, you'll see a new issue about every 3 months. You're doing very well, so let's give you another question. True or false? Only university professors can publish articles in Forum. Wow. Oh, for a second there, we had a 100% answer. I don't know what happened to the poll there, but everybody seems to think that that is false. And it is false because any teacher of English can publish an article in Forum. And Forum has published articles by EFL teachers, ESL teachers, university instructors, high school teachers, teaching assistants, and many other kinds of English teachers. Raise your hand if you have ever submitted an article to Forum. There we go. There we go.
Oh, fantastic.
That's great. A lot of people. Okay, it's going off the edge of our screen. There's so many people who have submitted. Thank you very much. We appreciate that because we rely on people to create the content for Forum. And if you're the ones writing the articles, we know it's what you want to read about. Okay, so we'll talk more about how you can submit an article to Forum at the end of the webinar. Let's try another question. Many teacher trainers use Forum in their classes.
So yeah, that is true. It depends on what you want to do as a teacher trainer. When I was an English teacher in Mongolia, I used Forum with my pre-service and in-service teacher trainees quite a bit. And now with the new Forum, there's a lot of great sections that are really helpful for new teachers and also teachers who have been in the field for many years. So there's a lot of effective tools that we're going to tell you about today that teacher trainers can use with their teacher training classes.
Okay, one more question. True or false? Groups of teachers meet to discuss Forum articles to further their professional development.
So that's true as well. Like I just mentioned, Forum is very helpful for teachers' professional development. But we're going to talk about specifically how groups of teachers can get together with the new Forum and exchange ideas and engage with others and learn more about the English teaching field.
Okay, thank you for your responses to those polls. You all did very well. So, how do you get access to this professional development tool? I know some of you get them at American Spaces or from your Relo or, as I said before, at conferences. But if you don't want to wait to get your print copy of Forum, you can go to the website and you'll see on the slide in front of you a tab that's circled at the top. And you click on that tab and you will find the latest issue of Forum, and you'll also be able to read back issues. Okay, so let's talk about the new Forum. This is a close-up image of the front cover of volume 53, number 1, and it highlights a new feature, which is an abbreviated table of contents that appears on the front of each issue. So it just will give you an idea of what's inside. And I have underlined in red the names of the sections that we'll be talking about today. They are articles, reader's guide, teaching techniques, my classroom, try this, and of course we've already talked about the lighter side. So now Roger's going to talk about the articles section a little more in depth.
Okay, hello again there. So I'm going to talk about the kind of the main part of forum, the articles. And as you see circled there, there are usually 3 article issue. And the main features of the articles are they combine theory and practice. They're usually about 8 to 20 pages long, and they're about a main theme where the author or authors combine theory with a lot of practical tips for classroom practice. They're also very accessible. They can be a great resource, and as I tell a lot of readers, don't be intimidated just because they include theory and they're a little bit longer. They're very well written, and even if you don't read the entire article, you can get a lot of information and advice from just reading parts of the articles. And we've been talking about professional development, and these articles are an outstanding resource to develop yourself in your teaching, even if you're reading them on your own. And as I'm sitting next to the editor of Forum, Max Kohler, you should know that she has read every single article for more than a decade in Forum. So I'd like to ask Max if she could give our webinar participants some examples of the huge variety of articles that we've published.
You're right, there is a lot of variety. And Forum has published articles on every topic related to English teaching. We published articles on the 4 skills, of course, on extensive reading, articles on vocabulary, academic writing. We've published articles on how to use cell phones in the classroom. And as you know from the last webinar, we published an article on rock and roll English teaching. If you are interested in a particular topic related to English teaching, you can go to the Forum website and type that topic in the search box to see what has been published about it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Max. So I'd like to talk more about how you can actually use these articles for your own professional development. So I'm going to talk about a recent article that was published in the new forum titled Observation Tools for Professional Development. In just a minute, I'm going to show a poll because I'd like to get your thoughts on classroom observation. And in this case, when I'm talking about classroom observation, I'm referring to when a supervisor comes to your class. This is the most common type of observation, and it usually involves a supervisor or a senior teacher checking your teaching somehow. So based on this, I'd like you to take a look at the poll and choose one of the following. So I ask, what is your opinion of classroom observation? So please choose one of those 4. We'd like to see what you think.
I love it.
Oh, a lot of people love it. That's great. Really? Do you really love it? Okay, some people say I do it because I have to, but I don't get much from it. That can be quite true, actually. Any thoughts, Max?
It's always interesting to see what people are responding. They're saying, I enjoy it, it helps a little. Of course, it makes a difference who is doing the observing and how they give you the feedback and what kind of feedback they give you.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, Max, because in the field of English language teaching right now, the issue of classroom observation is being talked about quite a bit, because a lot of teachers and a lot of administrators really want to work to improve this tool for professional development. They want to make this tool much less worrisome and nerve-wracking than it has to be, because usually when someone comes into your classroom, even if it's another teacher or a supervisor, it can kind of make you nervous. So we want to think about ways that can really improve this experience. So to do this, we're going to take a look at one of the articles that was published in Forum about this. So as I was saying, a lot of people in English teaching are trying to work on improving this. And I'm going to talk a little bit about an article that was published in the New Forum by someone named Kathleen Malu. It's a really great article, and she includes a couple of great tools that teachers and supervisors can use anywhere in the world. So the first tool that she talks about is called the T-chart tool. This one shows the results just so you know what it looks like. Now, when anyone goes into a class to observe another teacher, there's a lot of things that can be observed. You know, sometimes sometimes when a supervisor observes a teacher, they have a checklist that indicates performance ratings, and they look for a lot of different things. However, when teachers really want to develop themselves, it's usually important to focus on just one area at a time, so teachers can develop that particular skill. The T-chart tool here provides a really easy methodology to do that. In this case, for example, the observer marks the amount of times the teacher talks and how many times the students talk. So the teacher can get a really nice piece of evidence of what really happened in the classroom. So right now, I'd like to ask the participants, can you raise your hand if you've ever used the T-chart tool in an observation before? We'd like to see how many people have used this. Okay,
It looks like a lot of people have used it.
Yeah, we've got some good responses there. So if you haven't used it before, you might want to consider using something like this. And again, you can find this in the first issue of the New Forum, or you can go online and you can find it by looking up Kathleen Malu. She's the author of this. I'm going to give you one more tool that you could potentially use in a classroom observation.
Well, Roger,
Yes, Max?
if you were my teaching colleague and I asked you to observe my class, would you use this tool, and how would you do that?
That's a very good question, Max, because I've actually used this tool or something like it before I saw Kathleen Malu put it in her article, and I can tell you it's really, really effective. So like as you see here, there are a lot of boxes that represent desks in the classroom, and each is marked with a B for boy and G for girl. At the front of the room is the teacher and chalkboard. And you see some marks and some lines showing where the teacher began standing and where he moved throughout the classroom. So this type of tool can be used to show who the teacher is calling on during class. And in this case, it's being used to show how the issue of gender might influence who the teacher calls on. What I really like about this tool is that, like the other one, it's a very clear map of what a teacher is doing, and it enables a teacher and the observer to really talk about something solid that they can both agree on when they're doing a feedback session after a classroom observation. So those are a couple of tools from one of our articles. What I'd like to follow up with is a new section that we've created for the New Forum, and it comes right after articles. It's called the Reader's Guide. So I'd like to explain just a little bit what it's about, and as soon as I'm done explaining it, I'd like to do an activity with you about the Reader's Guide. So what is the Reader's Guide all about? So it's pre- and post-reading questions, and they're designed to help you think about the article and have you dig deeper into how the articles can help you develop professionally. Also, as you know as teachers, it's very helpful when reading longer pieces of text, or in this case articles, to read for a specific purpose. So the Reader's Guide can help you focus and tune your attention to the main ideas and themes of the article. And lastly, as I mentioned before, it can be used for individuals or in groups. And you can discuss the articles in groups. You can assign them as homework during teacher training courses. Also, if you are the trainer in a teacher training course, there are questions that are ready to go for you, so you don't have to read through the articles yourself looking for questions to ask your teachers. So we hope you find them useful. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at some pre-reading questions from the Reader's Guide and ask you for your opinions. We're going to do the Reader's Guide for the article Literature Circles as Support for Language Development. Now, some of you may already be familiar with what a literature circle is, but if you aren't, it's like a book or a story discussion group where everyone has an assigned role. For example, someone might be the discussion facilitator, someone will be responsible for explaining vocabulary. Another student might be creating images of the story. They might draw pictures. And they all sit in a circle like you see on the slide on your screen. And this is a way of encouraging students to talk more effectively and use the 4 skills when reading a text. So Max is going to ask the first question. And for this answer, please just raise your hand. And remember, these are pre-reading questions, so you didn't have to read this article before this webinar. So they're just pre-reading questions to get you to think about the article that you might read at a later time.
That's right. And the first question is, have you ever participated in a literature circle or a book discussion group? And of course, that seems like a yes or no answer, but it's intended to get you to reflect on what your experience was in those kinds of groups.
So please raise your hand for this. You don't need to say yes or no.
Right, just raise your hand.
So it looks like a lot of people have. Have you ever been in a book discussion group or literature circle, Max?
Yes, but it was a very long time ago.
Oh, really? Okay. I used to do a lot of them when I was teaching, and it's a really fun way of getting students engaged with the reading. I found that my students really loved it, so I hope you read this article in a forum. So
Roger will ask the next question, and for this question, we would like you to answer in the chat box, but we don't expect long answers. You can answer in just a few words.
Okay.
Here's the question.
So what are the potential benefits of extensive reading for learners? And by extensive reading, I mean when students read for long periods of time, either in or out of class. So we'd like to hear you or to see what your answers are. So someone says improve lexis, definitely. Improve vocabulary.
Acquire vocabulary.
That motivates readers, definitely. Speech improvement.
Better understanding. Or vocabulary. Everyone agrees on the vocabulary.
Yeah, someone also, Sylvia in Uruguay says, they read for pleasure, so they make the most out of the language. That's very nicely said. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment.
So this is what the pre-reading questions look like in the Reader's Guide. So I'd love you to check it out in the new forum. So Max and I have highlighted 2 sections in the new forum, and we hope you can get a lot out of them for your professional development, both the articles and the Reader's Guide. But there is so much more to the new forum. And what we're going to do now is turn it over to David and Tom, and they're going to do some really exciting activities with you. So take it away, David and Tom.
Well, thank you, Roger, and thank you, Max. Hello again, everyone. Yes, David and I are going to start off by talking about another new section in forum called Teaching Techniques. And here you can see a screenshot from the AmericanEnglish.state.gov website with the table of contents. It's a little bit clipped off here. It's just the upper part of the screen. You've got the articles, and then in the red circle, you can see the teaching techniques. That's right, David. But, before we talk about teaching techniques, would you mind looking at a picture that I drew? Again, Tom? Tom's always showing me pictures that he just sort of draws during the day.
I have to tell you that I'm really, really proud of this drawing.
Okay, and here it is. Whoa. Well, what do you think it is? Some sort of insect. 4 legs, antenna. It must be an insect.
Well, that's a very good guess, but it's not correct.
Wait a second here. We've got, almost 150 participants. I'm sure that some of you can figure out what this is. Oh, Daniel, good to have you with us. An alien, I like that.
Someone else said roads. We have ladders, a dog, a bull.
Let's see. Some lines. To be quite literal about it. That's good. Yeah, there are definitely some lines. Ooh, a UFO. So, Tom, you gonna tell us what it is that you have been drawing?
Well, actually, there were some people who could understand what I was trying to draw there, and so I'll tell everyone that is actually a drawing of a chair.
A chair. Doesn't look like a very comfortable chair, Tom.
Well, no, but it is a chair, and some of our participants knew that. They guessed correctly, so congratulations to you.
And, Tom, just out of curiosity, why did your chair come out like a series of lines like that?
Well, I'll tell you a little secret. I drew this chair with my eyes closed.
And why would you do that, Tom?
Well, I drew the chair with my eyes closed because I was trying the technique described in a teaching techniques article called Speed Drawing for Vocabulary Retention.
Oh, wow, this sounds really, really interesting. Tell us about this.
Okay. Well, this article is by Sarah Hendricks, and the way the technique works is the students have a set of new vocabulary words, or maybe they're reviewing some vocabulary. The students work in pairs. The first partner thinks of a vocabulary word and then closes her eyes. The second partner says, go, and then counts to 10. The first partner has 10 seconds to draw the vocabulary word with her eyes closed. When 10 seconds are up, the first partner stops drawing, and the second partner has to guess what the drawing is.
I like this. It's a way of ensuring that neither of the students is embarrassed about how they draw.
That's right. And when they try to guess what the word is, they not only use the vocabulary words that they are studying, but they also practice using structures like, I think it might be a blank, or I'm not sure, but is it a blank?
And I like that even better because there you have a chance to practice even larger chunks of language. Very, very nice.
Right. Well, let's give everyone a chance to see what it feels like to draw with your eyes closed. Everyone who has a pen or pencil and a piece of paper handy, please join in. I'll let you get ready. If you have a pen or pencil and a piece of paper, take a moment and get ready to draw. All right. This time, I will tell you what to draw just to practice. I'd like everyone, when I say go, I'd like everyone to draw a tree. Now, close your eyes. Close your eyes. You have to close your eyes. And then I'll give you 10 seconds to draw. Ready? Go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Stop. 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 Okay, now open your eyes and take a look at what you've drawn. And if you are in a viewing group or viewing with a friend or colleague, please show your drawings to each other. How do they look? Let's see. Well, some people say, well, it looks like an original tree. Like sticks. Or a tree from the future. All right.
I like that one. That's really good.
Maria says mine looks like an ice cream cone.
Okay, we drew pretty well. Good. I see some of you feel good about your drawings. That's good to hear. A Kandinsky. I like it. I want to see the Kandinsky. I only wish we had a way of sharing these drawings right now. I drew one, Tom.
Well, your tree actually looks more like a chair than my chair did.
Well, I appreciate that, and I wonder what your vision is like these days, Tom. I really have no idea what I drew, but I'm glad it looks like something. That's well promising.
That's great. You're on your way to a career as an artist.
Tom, I'm interrupting you here, but I just have to say this. I think students would have a lot of fun with this activity.
Well, I think so too. And remember, in the classroom, one partner does not know what the other person is drawing. So they have to keep guessing until they get it right.
And it sounds like a great way to practice English.
Well, it is.
And so, Tom, tell us if we could share an example of how this activity could be used with more complex concepts.
Sure, I think it could.
Let's try something. I asked a colleague a couple of days ago to draw a picture, and I want you to tell me what you think it is, Tom.
Okay, so this colleague drew with his or her eyes closed?
Yes.
Okay.
This is exactly what we're going to be looking at right now.
Okay.
Just like the speed drawing activity that you've tried.
All right.
This colleague had 10 seconds, eyes closed, and here's what he drew.
Okay. Well, let's see. To me, it looks like someone looking at a bunch of basketballs, maybe, or someone performing on a stage. I don't know. Can any of the webinar participants help out here? What do you think that looks like? Okay, well, a singer in a concert, it's a class, teacher and students,
A soccer match.
a cemetery. Wow.
And maybe you're all watching the FIFA World Cup these days. Yeah, it looks kind of like a goalie and a group of players out there.
Wow, we're getting a lot of interesting ideas. A lot of teacher and student, but some concerts, football or soccer, a church,
A politician I also saw.
all right?
So let me give you a hint now. This has to do with the poll that you took earlier in the webinar about professional development. Let me remind you, those were the 6 options that you had to choose from early on in the webinar. Can you now guess which option our colleague thought was the most interesting one when he drew this particular speed drawing? And we've got a poll that you can take. Actually, the poll is, maybe it's for the next one. Yeah, this one is, I already see your answers coming in. 5, 1, 5, let's see. Many of you present a new idea at a workshop or observe a friend teach. And you're all coming up with really good answers. And in this particular case, our colleague was actually looking at presenting a new idea at a workshop as a way of actually developing professionally.
Okay, I can see that, but I can also see some of the other answers that people were guessing, like observing a friend teach or attending a workshop. And I think both of those also make sense.
They do, and I think that's what's interesting about this is that it gives the observer a chance to be a little bit more creative with
his or her answers. Are you ready to try another one? Yeah, let's do one more. Again, the same idea. A colleague in the office was asked to choose from among these 6 options for professional development, and this is what he came up with. Oh, another interesting drawing. And this time I do believe we have a poll for you. So I'm going to ask our wonderful moderators to come up with this poll. And there you've got your 6 choices. What do you think? Which one is this drawing referring to? Very good. So again, it's a similar drawing, isn't it, Tom? Well, yes, it is. But there's one big difference. Yes, this one, we can see that someone there, it looks at like at the bottom of the drawing, and then we see 2 lines going toward the front. And what that looks like to me is that the person there at the bottom is actually observing another teacher. So I'm not sure if I'm right, but I would say that my choice is this one shows observe a friend teach. Well, in this case, you see, all of you out there seem to have for the most part, picked the first one. This is indeed what our colleague was thinking of. This particular colleague feels that he gains a lot more by watching other teachers teach. That he gets new ideas from this particular option. But again, there are other possibilities that are correct, and I see no issue with most of the other possibilities. That's right. You know, what I like about this example is that it shows how versatile the blind speed drawing technique really is, because you can use it with simple nouns like chair or tree, or you can use it with more abstract and complex ideas. Very well put, Tom. Thank you. You're welcome, Tom. Well, and I think this example also gives you an idea of the kind of articles you can find in the teaching techniques section of Forum. By the way, before we go on to the next slide, I do remember a really interesting comment. I think it was by Maria in Bolivia, who said that one of the things that could be done is to have the students hang up their speed drawing pictures around the classroom, and then you could do a kind of mall activity where the students walk around the classroom and pick their favorite, and perhaps even write something below that says, I think this one is. Yeah, that would be a great idea. There's all kinds of different things you can do there. You can try to match which drawings, try to express the same idea. You could just give your opinion of the drawing. There's so many things that you can have students do once they produce the drawings. Well, these teaching techniques are a lot of fun. I wonder, is there another example that you have to show, Tom? Sure. We do have another example. First, let's just say something about the teaching techniques in general. Each article in this section describes one technique that readers can use in their classrooms. The articles are short and direct. Usually they explain how the technique works and give a few examples. And then after that, it's up to the readers to go use the technique in the classroom. And I appreciate that explanation of teaching techniques. And now I think is the time to move on to another example of teaching techniques. Now that everyone understands what teaching techniques articles are like, let's look at another example. This one is called Nouns on the Job Market, an Approach for Recognizing Noun Position Errors, written by Sandra Thompson-Issa. This article appears in the second issue of 2015. And let me ask the participants here, do your students ever write or say sentences like these? Raise your hand if your students write sentences similar to these. The boy, he went to the store, or that is the girl went to the store. Raise your hand if your students write or say sentences like that. Wow, a lot of hands are being raised here. Oh, wow, yes.
Does seem like, well, we're moving towards a majority now.
I see nothing but raised hands. Wow. Okay, well, notice that both of these sentences use incorrect grammar.
Yes, and I noticed that in each case, the errors relate to nouns and noun position.
Right. This article presents a technique for helping students recognize that kind of error and learn how to check it and correct it. Actually, that's the job market in the title. In every sentence, each noun has one job to do. 2 jobs are too many, and no job is not enough. So the article suggests a technique for helping students make sure the nouns in their sentences are doing only one job.
That's a very clever way of understanding this chunk of grammar. Should we give our viewers a chance to correct these 2 different sentences?
Sure, let's try the first one. How would you correct the sentence, the boy he went to the store? How would you write that correctly? You can type that in the chat box.
The boy he went to the store. Let's see. Somebody typed in who. The boy who. The boy who went to the store. And I see Sylvia in Uruguay. The boy went to the store. Looks good to me.
Okay, yeah, well, I agree. The easiest correction to keep it to make it a complete sentence anyway, probably the easiest way is just to write the boy went to the store. And we can cut the word he because it doesn't have a job in that sentence. It's not doing anything. Now, what about the second sentence? That is, the girl went to the store. How would everyone correct that one?
That is the girl who went to the store. I see Patricia in Bolivia.
Okay.
Okay. Quite a few of you are. That is the girl who went to the store, are including that one as an answer. And here, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like there are a couple of ways to correct this one. One is what we see many of our participants already writing in and showing, that it could be that is the girl who went to the store.
Sure, that's a good one. You could also change the sentence a little bit and say, that girl went to the store. That changes the emphasis a little bit, and that might depend on the context. But that sentence would also be correct. So these are just 2 examples of the kinds of sentences that this article deals with. Again, the article describes a technique for helping your students recognize and correct this kind of error on their own. Okay, so remember, both the speed drawing article and the noun position article can be found in the new teaching techniques section of Forum, along with many other techniques.
And I think you're beginning to get a feel now for the new look of Forum. We've covered the articles and the reader's guide and the teaching techniques, all of which can play a key role in developing professionally, either alone or hopefully with a group of teachers. And now we are going to take a look at another section of Forum that allows us to explore and discover English teaching in a specific part of the world, and it's called My Classroom. This is an example from our website.
Well, it looks good. This article focuses on a teacher in Indonesia named Alif Nur Farida, and it provides some interesting examples of how she engages her students to use English in creative ways in her classroom.
And that's exactly right, Tom. My Classroom is designed with a couple things in mind. We want the readers to explore English teaching in a specific country through the eyes of a local teacher, and we also want the reader to gain insights into how to make the classroom a more communicative experience.
Okay, and the newest My Classroom article, which is now available online as part of the second issue of 2015, is actually about English teaching in a country that you lived in recently, David.
Yes, it's a country that I spent the last several years in, and I'm excited to show you a few photos from this particular country and that focus on this particular edition of My Classroom. Can you guess which country it is?
Well, I'll let the participants try to guess first based on these pictures.
Oh, very good. I see a couple coming in. I see Indonesia, Asia, Bolivia, and India. Okay, wow, we're covering a lot of the globe in this.
We are.
I see a few of you have figured it out as well. I'm not going to say what it is. I'm going to give one more clue. Shall we try that?
Sure.
Okay, this is a close-up of that lower photograph.
Okay, so let's look at the clues there. Well, I see some words in the background. I see some words in Spanish, so that narrows it down a little bit. And wait, are those the Nazca lines?
Yes, those are the Nazca lines, Tom.
Okay, and I also see on the school uniforms there, I see the letters ILO, ELO. Now, where is ELO?
Well, Ilo is a town in southern Peru, and now I see all of these Peru answers coming in. And it's exactly where Miss Angela Wonka, the teacher featured in this particular My Classroom, teaches. She is standing at the center of the photograph, surrounded by her students who are in a public school uniform in that particular town.
So the correct answer is Peru. And David, can you tell us a little bit about English teaching in Peru?
Well, I am going to let Miss Wonka tell us a little bit about teaching in Peru. I've pulled out a couple of interesting facts as well as some quotes. Let's take a look at the facts first.
Okay, well, I think it would be interesting to compare Ms. Wonka's situation to that of our webinar participants. For example, she teaches about 500 students during the school year because she has 12 groups of about 40 students each. Should we go to a poll? How about you? How many students do you teach during the school year? Again, we said that she teaches about 500. She has 12 groups of 40 students.
And just give our moderator a second to put these in order. You're actually going to see a second question there as well.
Okay, and so the second question, you can go ahead and answer the second question as well. In her situation, each of the 12 groups gets 90 minutes of English per week. Now, what about in your situation? How many hours of English class per week does a typical public high school student get in your country?
And that makes me think about my Spanish class in high school. Did you take a foreign language in high school, Tom?
I took German.
And how many hours per week of German did you get?
If I remember correctly, we had about 4 hours per week.
About 4. And I think for Spanish we had about 3. And I don't know, what did you think? Was that more than enough, or?
It was enough to get a basic understanding of the language, but not enough to really master the language.
So let's do the rest of the webinar in German, Tom.
Good idea, but we have to consider our audience.
So I'm also really interested in the feedback that you're giving about the number of students that you've got. I see many of you actually have fewer than 100 students during the school year. And that's
a nice thing to see, I think, isn't it? I think so. I think it doesn't mean that your job is easy, but it does mean that you have a pretty good chance to get to know your students and work with some of them either individually or in small groups. I remember one year when I had slightly over 300, and I had a lot of trouble remembering the names of students. Right. How about the second poll question there? How many hours of English class? It looks like the majority of people are saying 3 to 4 hours of English per week. So that's actually similar to what we were talking about in our experience with our foreign language study in high school. And I should mention, maybe some of our participants from Peru can comment on that I believe the number of hours per week in Peru, in the public school system specifically, is actually going up, and that they're using a special sort of set of hours to increase the number of hours of foreign language instruction. Maybe not at all schools, but at some schools. Let's move on to the quotes now. Okay. And excuse me, we do have one more poll, and this one is about the look of the classroom. Let's advance the slide once more. There we go. We've got two interesting little pieces of information about Ms. Wonka's classroom, that she has a whiteboard at the front of her room, and that she uses visual aids and realia. Maybe we should make sure that everyone knows what realia means. These are things that we bring in from, what can we say, real life and into the classroom. For example, in my classroom, I like to bring in souvenirs from places that I travel to as examples when teaching. What about you, David? Oh, I've brought in all kinds of things, but maps and toys seem to inspire a lot of conversation in the class. I've brought in food a few times as well, and of course that inspires a lot of eating. Eating and learning, we hope. So, what do you have in your classrooms? I see the poll coming in. Black whiteboard, the majority of you. A lot of visuals, that's good to see. Realia as well, a good third of you. Oh, wow. 60% have computer and projector. And then there's the smart board as well. The lowest of all 5 choices up there. But still 10%, 10 or 11% have a smart board available. And I'm particularly happy to see the large number of posters and visuals referred to, because I do know that there are many schools where teachers have to move from class to class as opposed to having her own classroom, which makes it a little bit more difficult to have posters and visuals. Right. Well, that's where things like realia can be really helpful, because you can usually easily carry them from one room to another. And I remember seeing a teacher at one school who had a backpack full of things like that, realia, visuals, and as soon as she arrived in the class at the beginning, she would open up her backpack and use those different objects. I'm sure many of our participants do something similar. So let's move on to the quotes now. We have a couple of interesting quotes from the article, and we've set it up so that you get to guess the blank. Tom, do you want to read the first one? Okay, she's proud of the strong relationships she has with her students. Relationships built on mutual respect and overwhelming, Tom. Look at this. Well, almost overwhelming. Yes, now it's back to overwhelming. Respect and trust. Okay, I think trust is the correct answer. And what do you think about that quote, Tom? Well, I agree with this statement, because I think respect and trust are central to a successful classroom. I would agree entirely. And let's try the next quote. This is probably my favorite quote. Okay, do you want to read it? Sure. Miss Wonka prides herself on being able to provide her students with a variety of activities that make students feel comfortable enough to blank and speak freely about the topic at hand. And the results are coming in. A lot of movement. A lot of thinking going on. That's a good sign. That's a very good sign. Yeah, this one is not easy. It is trickier, isn't it? No. Well, the majority are choosing take risks as the answer. I think you could choose work hard or learn a lot. I think they both make sense. Maybe one clue from the context where it says speak freely, and I think speak freely suggests the idea of taking risks. And it turns out that actually the actual quote uses the phrase take risks. And I think this ties in really well with the theme of professional development as well, because teachers sort of need to take risks to be able to learn more themselves as teachers. They need to involve themselves in workshops and read new articles and eventually, hopefully, try them out in the classroom. Right, they have to take risks sometimes trying new ideas in the classroom. And how about you in your German class? Were you a risk taker? Yeah, I was. Well, I can tell you that Tom is a true risk taker because he decided to partner with me during this webinar. So, well, okay, speaking of trying things, I think it's time to move on to one final section of forum. And, excuse me, this section is called Try This. You can see a lot of question marks there, and our question is, what is try this? Let's go to a poll to get some of your ideas. The question is, what would you expect to find in the try this section of forum? Would you expect to find great practical teaching ideas, suggestions on being happy, advice for becoming wealthy, or all of the above? And here come in the responses. Okay, again, a lot of movement. Great practical teaching ideas seems to be the one that many of you feel would be the right answer. What do you think, Tom? Well, let's see. Most people are saying great practical teaching ideas, and it's true that Try This is full of great practical teaching ideas. But you know, if you give a teacher great ideas, that teacher will be happy, right? Okay, yeah, I can see that line of logic. Let's take it one step further. There are many kinds of wealth, not just money, and one of the most important kinds of wealth is, well, happiness, right? You are right. So maybe another possible answer is all of the above. So let's just say that there are no wrong answers and that teachers can gain a lot by reading the Try This section. By the way, why is it called Try This? And you know, a lot of people ask me that. How many people ask you that, Tom? Somebody just asked me that this morning, and now you're asking me about that again. Well, maybe it helps to compare teaching with cooking. Sometimes when you cook a really delicious dish and you want to share it with other people, you'll say, you've got to try this. Well, it's the same when you come up with a really great teaching idea. You want to go to other teachers and say, try this. So that's good. I like that. And teachers like sharing ideas, and they like to have other teachers share ideas with them. Right. Well, let's take a closer look at this section. So in each Try This, you'll find a description of an activity that you can use in the classroom. Right. Now, there's one activity described in step-by-step detail. You'll also find options for using the activity with different ability levels or in different teaching contexts. And we also try to provide extra examples or handouts that you can copy or use directly in your teaching.
And it's always nice to get materials and handouts that are ready to use.
That's for sure.
So are we ready to look at an example of try this?
Yes, I think we are. Why don't we use the try this from earlier this year called listening and logic?
It's a great idea. We just decide what Paul likes and put a check under it, correct, Tom?
Well, no, not quite. The idea here is that you have a logic grid, and we see the names of three people, Paul, Kevin, and Carol, and then we see three kinds of breakfast: scrambled eggs and sausage, omelet with cheese and toast, and yogurt with fruit and honey. Our job is to figure out what each person ate for breakfast.
This sounds like a lot more fun, but clues, right? Don't we need some clues to be able to work through this puzzle?
Yes, we do. But that's what makes this a listening activity. The teacher makes a set of clues and divides them in half so that there are two separate lists of clues.
Okay, so let's see. Then you would divide the students into pairs, and each partner gets half of the clues.
Right, each partner gets half of the clues. And what they have to do is read each other the clues, and then together they figure out the answer to the puzzle. So each pair gets one grid that they fill out together, but they listen to each other's clues in order to work together and solve the puzzle.
Let's do it. I'm ready. So I've got my set of clues. Do you have yours?
Yes, I do. But here's what we're going to do. You and the participants will see your clues, but you won't be able to see my clues. So you'll have to read your clues, and then you have to listen to my clues. And then we'll ask everyone to solve the puzzle.
Okay, and I see some of you are already expressing a preference for some of this food, but remember, this food belongs to Paul, Kevin, and Carol. So here are my clues. Kevin does not eat bread, and Paul does not like to eat sweet things for breakfast.
Okay, those are David's clues. Now, please listen carefully to my clues. I'll read my clues. My first clue is Harold does not like eggs. Again, Harold does not like eggs. The second clue is Kevin always eats eggs and meat for breakfast. Again, Kevin always eats eggs and meat for breakfast.
And we've got some polls coming up.
Okay, you've got the information, and now see if you can solve the puzzle. So when you're ready, please enter your answers in the polls. They're just coming up now, I believe. Once they're up, I'll read my clues again in case you missed them.
And eventually you will see all three polls, one for each of our three hungry participants in this particular logic puzzle.
Okay. Again, I'll read my clues that you can't see. The first clue is Carol does not like eggs. The second clue is Kevin always eats eggs and meat for breakfast.
I think they're doing pretty well at this.
I think so too.
And the one interesting thing is that we've got many of you picking scrambled eggs and sausage for both Paul and Kevin, yet only one of them could have that particular breakfast. Okay, I see some shifts going on. So, should we show them?
I think we are ready to show the solution, that we can talk about it for a moment.
Okay, and are you ready for the solution? There it is. There it is.
All right, so you can see the smiley faces in the grid show the correct answers or the correct matches.
So, for example, we knew that Carol doesn't like eggs, which means that she would have chosen yogurt with fruit and honey, since you can find eggs in both scrambled eggs, of course, as well as an omelet.
Right, so then we have to figure out which breakfast Paul and Kevin ate. Now, it turns out that Kevin does not eat bread, so that means he won't have toast, and that means he'll have the scrambled eggs and sausage.
And then there's only one breakfast left for Paul, and that would be the omelet with cheese and toast.
So there's the answer, and that was fun.
And I see already some of you are commenting on how good this particular activity is. What's really neat is that this isn't the only one, is it, Tom?
No, in the Try This section, we also provide extra puzzles for teachers to use with their students. We have two quick examples here. We're not going to solve these now, but here's a fairly easy one about pets and what each color the pet is. So you can see the pets are dog, cat, bird, and fish. And there's a brown pet, white pet, black pet, and a gray pet. And we would provide the clues that would help students solve that puzzle.
And very quickly, an example of one clue might be what? Again, in fairly simple English, the dog is not brown. Something like that.
Okay, and one more example. This one, obviously, there are more parts to it, so it might be used for more advanced students, but you would have to figure out, there are 6 people here, and you have to figure out what each person does in his or her free time.
Okay, well, I like the fact that you can use these logic puzzles for both very low-level or beginner-level English language learners, as well as fairly advanced learners.
Right, and again, these examples appear in the Try This section of Forum. Oh, and we should let everyone know that this activity was written by Heather Benucci, also known on these webinars as Moderator Heather.
And Moderator Heather, I know you're out there listening, and I think we should let everybody know that she is about to become a mom, and she is helping us with this particular webinar maybe hours before she has her first beautiful baby. She's done a great job with these different sections. There will be other sections, and we will have some other contributors to the Try This section. And without further ado, we're going to pass this now back to Max and Roger, and they will be talking a little bit more about New Forum.
Great, thank you. So we're back, and we don't have a lot of time, but you can see that there are all kinds of good ideas in Forum that you can use in your classrooms. But I know that all of you are experienced teachers and that you have good ideas yourselves. And earlier in the webinar, many of you raised your hands and said you've already submitted a contribution to Forum. We'll just give you a little information. If you have an article to write, or now you've seen teaching techniques, you might want to write one of those. You would go to our website. The slide in front of you shows a red circle on a tab that says submissions. When you click on that, it goes to this. And you've got your submission guidelines, and we've circled articles, and we've circled teaching techniques because those are the 2 things you would write. And you can click on that plus sign to the right and get more information that will give you the specifics of how long they should be and how to email your work to us. We have no specific deadlines, So whenever your article is ready, feel free to send it to us.
Okay, great. We'd love to see your submissions. So we've come to the end of the webinar here, and after this slide, we'd just like to ask you one more poll. So just to wrap this up, we were talking a lot today about, if we could go back to the slide. Let's go back to the slide. Thank you. And we talked a lot about professional development today. And we'd just like to wrap it up with some final thoughts from all of us. It's been a real pleasure talking with you today. We hope you check out the print version of Forum. Look at the article we talked about. Enjoy using the Reader's Guide. And I'd like to turn it over to Max, Tom, and David with any final thoughts they have.
My final thought is what you're looking at, in case you don't realize it, is the front cover of the second issue of Forum. And this webinar has covered material from the first and the second issues.
And this is Tom. I'd just like to thank all of you for participating, and we hope to hear from some of you again when you submit an article to the forum.
And this is David, and I would love to hear comments from you, not only about this webinar, but about the articles. And you can send us comments at etforum@state.gov. Again, that's etforum@state.gov.
So before we go, we'd just like to show one last poll to get your thoughts. Which section of Forum are you most looking forward to reading? So as we said earlier, a lot of people are interested in the teaching techniques and the articles and try this. But of course, the answer we're looking for is all of the above. We know you're interested in looking at everything and using it with your fellow teachers and students. So we'd like to wish you good luck in your teaching and good luck using Forum. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, David, Max, Tom, and Roger for sharing some great tips with us today and for pointing out the new features of Forum that will help us all to become better teaching professionals and help our students become more engaged in English learning. So thank you so much. And we here on the American English team would also like to give our thanks to you, our audience participants, for your great participation today in the polls and in the chat box with sharing all of your great ideas. Don't forget to participate in the post discussion on the Ning, and that's where you can find the recordings of this webinar and all the materials that they discussed today. And of course, you can always just go to americanenglish.state.gov and check out the Forum article that was just published recently. So thanks so much for participating. Our next and final webinar for this course will be on July 1st, Talking to Learn Across Cultures and Communities, and that will be presented to us by Spencer Salas. So we look forward to seeing you there, and thanks again.